2023 meeting of the Lake Quinsigamond Commission. I'm Michael Piker, Vice Chair. In the absence of Peter Collins being off tonight, I'm going to chair the meeting. Let it be known that the meeting is being both audio and video recorded. So I'd like to have then a call to order. I'd like to ask as to whether members of the commission here tonight have reviewed and acted, and can we act upon acceptance of the minutes of the June 2023 meeting minutes?
Yes, I have reviewed them.
And I have that seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so accepted. All right, let's have then a review of and approval of bills and expenses. Do we have any?
There are no bills and expenses this month.
Okay. All right, number 5, public participation. I understand that there's some people that have been communicating with myself and Peter in terms of issues and concerns. Anybody who would speak, let it be known that you have 3 minutes, and you need to come up and to the desk in front of the commission, and please give your name and address. Again, you have 3 minutes to express your concerns. So is there anybody who would like to speak tonight? Raise your hands. Okay. Come up to the mic and give your name and address, please.
I'm Steve Russo, 24 Stoneland Road in Shrewsbury.
Mm-hmm.
My major concerns are really with the lake being drawn down where it's still at a high level. And where last week you did implement the no wake zone and the speed limit. And as of today, the lake is, I measure it where my dock is. I can usually have like 6 to 8 inches of clearance from the bottom of my dock.
Mm-hmm.
And as of today, I'm about a ½ an inch below the bottom of my dock. When you implemented last week, I was about 1 inch below the dock. So the water level is higher than what it was back when you rescinded the order of the no wake zone in the lake. So that's my big concern. My other thing is the jet ski noises with the way they ride around in circles. And my property is like where the biggest part of the lake is the widest part, and they just run around like crazy people, just constantly going in circles, spinning and diving. And the other day I was out there, I had 3 jet skis following me. This was when they had the no wake zone in effect. Mm-hmm. A boat came by me making about a 1.5 foot wave, and those 3 jet skis that were coming behind, all they did was zigzag over his wake, and one of them came in front of my boat as I was going, about 8 feet in front of me, and just cut right across. So I think, I know that's the police department's thing. I know you can't be out there 24/7 and watching, but, and what I see happening, last week the environmental police actually stopped a couple of people. I was sitting on my boat just having lunch, and a pontoon boat was coming flying up. He went right over to him, told him to slow down. He told him about the speed limit and no wake zone. He let him, he didn't do anything, which is fine. So at least he warned him. As soon as they got apart from each other, the guy went full throttle again to keep going. And the same thing with a jet ski when he stopped him. And he actually was the environmental police, and he followed him all the way to Sunset Beach Bridge until he went under it. And, I don't live on that side, but as soon as environmental police went the other way, off he went. I know jet skis don't make a big wake, but it's just the way they're driving lately. It's just, and then in the music with them or the other boats that are just anchored everywhere. So really those are my concerns I think you have to address and get going on.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just an informative question? When you measured that it was higher, was that this morning after last night's rain or previously?
No, it's about the same as it was like the other day as of right now. Now I'm about this far below the bottom of my dock. And like you were saying earlier, we're expecting more heavy rain tomorrow. Yeah. And I don't know, how much does the lake rise with every inch of rain that we usually get with all the runoffs and coming? I know it definitely goes up. And even today, you can't even see the rocks that are outside, like where the big island is, where the eagles are. You can't even see the rocks anymore. All you see is the buoys floating.
Yes, I was out in the lake this morning, and I saw that the water was very close to the bottom of a large number of docks.
All right, so that's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Ma'am, introduce yourself and give your address, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Barbara Feiner. I live at 190 South Quinsigamond. A lot of these things are things you've heard before, but I'll just make an observation that there are a lot of repeat offenders, and I would like to see something done about that, something more severe than is currently being done. I've even seen people be pulled over, and a half hour later they're doing the jumping, wheelie, circling, being very loud, the people with extremely loud music out on the lake. So you go and you stop them, and for 10 minutes it's fine, and then it starts up again. So I'm not totally sure what you can do about it, but fines, confiscating boats, things like that, there have to be a higher level of repercussion, or it's just like going like that to a 2-year-old, right? So that's probably one of my biggest concerns. The other one I know is resources. When the police boats are at whatever, the north end, things are happening on the south end. I mean, there's just no way to get there fast enough. And I don't know if people are radioing each other that are people that are not being kind to others, but you'll see more activity happening until the police boats come. So I don't know what can be done about that, but that's one of my concerns, also is that it's not really, for those who don't want to be good citizens, it's just not enough of a deterrent. I did have one idea, however, because I'm kind of a problem solver. So can we get a drone that's being monitored, especially on weekends, that's watching over the whole lake? They can fly very quickly. It can be in the opposite end of the lake from where the boat or boats are. I mean, something along those lines, kind of like the cameras on the Mass Pike will get you if you're speeding with your license plate number, but the same sort of idea, because they all have serial numbers on the boats. And then if there's any way to be able to find them, take away their pretty little equipment or whatever, that was one of the ideas I came up with. My only other request is that, and again, sorry Worcester, but the lake in front of, the street in front of Lake Park, from about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, or 1 o'clock in the morning on, almost every night, there's somebody out there partying. And when we call the police and you do go, 20 minutes later, my head is still pounding. They leave and then they come back. There's drag racing on that street, so something needs to be done about that general area. It's repeat offenders. I think people playing chicken and trying to disturb people and just not being nice neighbors, I guess. So.
Can I just clarify something? You said Lake Park. Where Tivnan Field is, or Quinsigamond State Park, that's actually on the lake?
Not the one with the sailboats, the one that's on the south side of the lake. I live across from
On the water.
that, yes.
Yeah, that's Quinsigamond State Park. Lake Park is across the street.
No, but Lake Street,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
If I could, Mr. Chair. So, last week, we did it was environmental, state police, environmental, Worcester, environmental, and state police, so it was 15 of us. We tried to address that problem. Shrewsbury was on the lake for us because, for jurisdictional issues. We finally got them to lock the gates at Regatta. That should be happening relatively soon. The problem with Lake Park, across from where you live, is they rent the field out. And the field's rented out till 10 o'clock at night. And
Fine with 10 o'clock, really I am.
I understand that. So that's a big issue that we're trying to resolve right now. But Regatta's being locked from now on. Supposedly, from what I understand, it's being locked. Lake Park's an issue because the field is rented out by private entities. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these groups have scanners, so they know when
I know.
you get a scanner on your phone. So when you call the police and complain, when we get there, the music might be turned down, might not be turned down. So we get there, it's not so-called a disturbance, and we warn them. But a lot of them are roving car rallies, or they're groups that gather and stuff like that. And I know it's a pain for you. Trust me, I believe you. And but the issue is these scanners on the phones really cause an issue for the police. So sometimes we try to have dispatch tell us on a non-secure band that the call comes in, so we can get there when the issue is going on. But we are looking into it. We're trying to do the best. Like we've sat down and we have talked with DCR and environmental, and we think we have the regatta point under control, which is not near you, of course, but we're trying to get Lake Park under control. But like I said, the problem is the renting out of the fields is an issue.
So, I mean, just some ideas for that. Patrol the street without having it be a call from one of us coming out to you, because that's what gets announced. If it's just a regular wandering up and down the streets, no one's going to hear that you're there. So do that more. I mean, after some period of time, hopefully a new pattern would be established where they're doing less of this. The other thing is there are laws in Massachusetts, I don't know what they are on the lake or in any of the towns, but noise above a certain decibel level is automatically considered disturbing the peace. So, can you limit the size of their woofers or so? I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing things out, but it really, I don't mind a little noise. This is really bad. I've been woken up at 1 o'clock in the morning so many times.
And just so you know, I'm not by no means I'm not making excuses. Like a loud music call to you is a priority one situation because it's disturbing your peace. It's priority one.
It's disturbing a couple of hundred of us.
I understand that, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not making excuses. But the city of Worcester, we have a lot of things going on that are true priority one calls.
I get it.
So when you call and there's loud music is a priority 3 call, and it's like when there's available units available to go to that call, which is going to require 2 units to go there. They'll respond when it's available in the priority 1 and 2
Yep.
calls to clear out. So
I
if you
totally
call
understand.
it 9 o'clock at night, there are times that we may not get till 10:30 at night because there's fights going on, domestics, a stabbing, a shooting, a robbery, or something like that, which are priority 1 calls. I'm not making excuses for the city of Worcester by any means because a priority 1, like disturbing, if I'm living in my house and my neighbor's having a loud party, that's priority 1 to me, So I get where you're coming from.
I did start
But
the
we're trying to-
conversation with saying we need more resources.
I understand
So
that.
I understand that too. So, I know that when citizens, squeaky wheel, right? When citizens complain about things, it's just like having us all call you, when there is noise. When there's enough momentum for it, then it becomes a higher priority and maybe there's more funding for it or something.
So there's a new captain in that district, and he has made it a priority to address that situation. He was just promoted within the last 5 weeks, and he's made it a priority to address that situation. So hopefully that situation, he's making sure his guys go by that issue because it is a problem property, and it has come up. We call it a problem property. It's not technically a house or something like that, but it has come up at commanders' meetings where that captain is trying to address the situation with personnel.
One of my neighbors is in his 80s, and he's very proud that street gets drag racing on it and has ever since he was a kid. And I just sit there going, I don't know what to do. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
As Vice Chair, let me, if I could, make some additional comments. It's called Quinsigamond State Park. The field there is a DCR field. That's what you're talking about. It has the lights, not the baseball field across the street, correct?
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay, well, no, it does matter because we just want to be clear in terms of where the offense appears to be. Now, Sergeant Gamond had said that they worked with Regatta Point to maybe lock that.
Yes.
If the DCR field, relative to rugby and football, I know a lot of activity goes on there, and it's well used. If the state people can be negotiated with, and that is when the use of the field is done, it's now 10 or 10:30 or 11, maybe something could be done to lock the gates so that vehicular traffic does not be able to get in there after, say, 11 p.m., which has allowed for the participants using the DCR field to vacate the property. That would help you and help these people. So
Yes.
it's just a thought.
Lights go off at 10, they're on a timer.
Yes, they do. The fields rent out to 10, and that's
Till
so-
10.
Till 10. The issue is the park closes at dusk, but they rent the field out till 10. It's like a catch-22. It's
Well,
bizarre.
If I can just say, if somehow or other state people like with Regatta Point can lock it up at a certain time, they simply drive around and whoever's got a car is like, hey, you got to be off the property, we're locking the gate.
Yeah, I know the other night.
Put up I know there are also state run properties where there's signs that say if the gate's locked, you have to call this number and it'll cost you money to have someone come down and unlock the gate to allow for you to get your car now out.
I think it's an ongoing. it's not like, we've had numerous meetings on this, and I'm not gonna lie, it's way above my pay grade. And there's been discussions, and like I said, it's above my pay. I really can't comment on it because I'm a sergeant at Worcester Police Department, and what the state's deciding is what the higher authorities are doing. But our recommendation from Worcester State Police and Environmental were to try to lock these gates at
If that
a
could be worked on, that
reasonable
might be
time.
a solution, I mean, a
So-
practical solution.
Yes.
Anyways, we're going to be moving on. Any other
Mr. Chair,
participation?
can I make
Sure,
one quick
go ahead.
comment? As I've heard about this problem and similar problems for many years at the Lake Quinsigamond Commission meetings, and so I'm just going to repeat what's been told to me many times. And the reason I'm saying this is because we're being broadcast on TV, and I hope everyone is listening. The more calls people make to whether it's the Worcester Police Department or the Shrewsbury Police Department, the more calls they register taking place in a year, the more attention the police chief in the city or town pay attention to problems on Lake Quinsigamond. So if you think your neighbor called, so you're not going to call, or someone else is supposed to call instead of you, you're not helping the problem. The maximum number of calls for any sort of disturbance is going to help the police force have allocated funds to solve these problems. And I'm just repeating what's been said in the past. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just reiterate that, every Thursday there's a commanders meeting, and they have the top 10 problem properties. So you are correct. If that falls into one of the top 10 problem properties on the call list, more resources will be generated towards that issue. So calling is important. I would say that
So
calling
hopefully
is
this
important.
captain can get together with the state like Regatta Point and see about some potential lock gate closure times so that people transporting vehicles that have a lot of high-volume sound instruments simply can't get that close
Yep.
to.
And I will, when I leave this meeting, I will personally call them.
If we need to, excuse me, well, as chair, let me just say, that is there any other public participation in terms of people who would want to speak? Okay, please come up and give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Lisa DeProfio. I live on Point Rock condos on Flint Pond.
Yep.
Thank you for letting us speak, and thank you for everybody coming. The common theme here to me is quality of life for the residents of the pond and the lake, and I wanted to come as a representative of Flint Pond because it is part of the lake, as you know, but sometimes I feel like it's the little forgotten part of the lake. I've lived there 29 years, and I've seen a dramatic difference in the last 4 years in the number of jet skis, the J word, sorry, but it is something that is of concern to me. I do recognize they have a right to be there. It's not my pond, it's a public pond, but I also feel that quality of life has been affected, and I represent a number of people who live at Point Rock and obviously other people who live on the water. And I do like to be a problem solver as well and not just complain, and I do recognize you guys are under-resourced, and I think we do need to think about creative ways because to me it's not only quality of life because of the noise, the music, the constant all day long. What has happened in the last 4 years since COVID is Oak Island has become a ground zero, if you will, for jet skis. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, and to me the environmental impact is something that is not brought up enough. I've seen them myself harass wildlife. It's just something needs to be done. It's just, if there's no consequence, significant consequence, I feel it will just get worse. So anyways, I wanted to just share my thoughts on it and what I've noticed. And, I hope together we can figure something out because it's a pond, not a water park. And that's what it's become, a water park. And that just doesn't seem to me the right thing, heading in the right direction. So thank you.
You're welcome. Any other members of the audience who desire to speak in terms of the public participation part of this meeting? As recognizing none, we're going to move on. Commissioners' reports. Amanda.
I just wanted to report that we have 3 enforcement orders for properties along the Worcester side of the lake. Their addresses are 215, 255, and 265. In the case of 255 and 265, these were situations where plans were presented to the Conservation Commission, and then the property owners did not follow the plan as they presented it to us. And they clear-cut the embankment from where they were building down to the waterfront. We brought enforcement orders against them. Both of those property owners were in compliance with us following that incident. One decided, for whatever reason, after making reparations and doing all these plantings, to mow all that down, and so we had to bring another action against that property. But we're fairly confident that we've got those two properties in compliance or working toward compliance. Where we have an issue right now is with 215. We asked them to present us with a restoration plan and to, make restoration of the embankment that they had clear cut. But the restoration plan that they did bore no relationship toward what the Conservation Commission was expecting. We wanted to see them restore it to the condition it was before they changed it. And what they did instead was put in riprap and then a lot of pea stone and planted little shrubs, and they've kind of excavated down right to the water bank and into the bordering vegetated wetlands. They've built on the bordering vegetated wetlands, and so now we've got a kind of a back and forth ping pong match, if you will, between the property owner and the Conservation Commission, which has been going on since November. So the Conservation Commission is quite frustrated with that particular property owner, and we have now issued a nominal fine for for one of the violations of $300, and we've listed all of the different violations that they have, with the assumption that, if they persist with this behavior, we're going to start tabbing them for $300 for each violation on a daily basis, in the hopes that we can get them to start to comply. And so that's the status that I have to present today.
Okay.
I guess, for me, it brings up an issue of what role does the Conservation Commission and the Lake Quinsigamond Commission have with each other with regard to such situations with enforcement orders? How much authority does Lake Quinsigamond Commission have in helping to support the Conservation Commissions in their authority?
Well, you get into kind of a technical issue, but really the commission's authority kind of begins and ends at the water's edge. Fellow commissioners, I don't know if you would agree with me, but thus then from the water's edge out, it takes in the issue of filling in the lake, docks, conduct on the lake, pollution into the lake, things like that. But once you hit the shore and you go above that, it probably comes under the purview of the CONCOMs, Conservation Commissions. I mean, to give you a general response to that question.
In this one case, it's bringing up the discussion about the Chapter 91 permitting process, and whether there needs to be a Conservation Commission permit or a Chapter 91 permit, or both. And then there's also the permit for the Lake Quinsigamond Commission, and it brings up the issue of streamlined permitting so that everyone's on the same page, and that we don't have this sort of back and forth of, well, I got my permit over there, so I don't need to get one over here.
Well, there may be different criteria for the city of Worcester as well as the town of Shrewsbury.
Right.
So, and we're gonna, to get into a prolonged discussion here, I don't think would, be necessarily, productive in terms of perusing, the nuances of such, yeah. But, you ask a good question.
Yeah. So it's just something that, probably we need to put it on our radar for future meetings.
Should we move on then?
Yep.
Mr. Polito?
Just to touch upon what Amanda said, Shrewsbury Conservation Commission just requires the property owner to come before them to show where the dock would go, show what's on the plan. The license, the permit would come from the Lake Quinsigamond Commission
Okay.
for that said dock.
Okay.
We don't get into the Chapter 90 or anything like that. That's beyond what the commission, the Conservation Commission gets involved with. But those are the two things that Shrewsbury does. And the other thing I'd just like to touch upon on what some of the comments were made about the jet skis. I've noticed the jet skis have become a lot louder, and I don't know if they're adding on aftermarket exhausts. There's the sounds and different things are a lot more harsh than what normally we're used to. That's just one observance that I've seen. And I've also observed too, it seems like occasionally there's a group at Lake Park, I don't know if they're renting, but they're going into the shore and they're coming out numerous times during the course of the day. Not just one, there's 3, 4 jet skis.
Quinsigamond State Park or Lake Park? Again,
Lake Park across the street from where I live, right?
across the lake from where you live?
Yeah.
So the street? Because just
Lake
for
Park,
people,
Mike, where
yeah,
they
just
have
to
the-
be clear, there's Lake Avenue. And on one side of Lake Avenue is the Tivnan Field. Do people know what I'm talking about? The baseball field. That's called Lake Park in Worcester. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. On the lake side of Lake Ave, where there's a park, that's called Quinsigamond State Park.
the one on the water.
Okay, Quinsigamond State Park. All right,
That's the one I was
Okay.
I'm talking about.
okay.
So that seems to be a little bit more pronounced than usual. That's something new. Also, to get back to the Conservation Commission, we did issue a couple of orders of conditions on the lake, mostly for rebuilding walls. There seems to be a lot more people coming forward for rebuilding of walls, and I think it's mostly attributed to the wave action. So in the high water, certain types of boats that are making large wakes. So that just seems to be coming up more and more lately. That's it. That's all I have.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just in quick response. I keep hearing about these behavioral issues that are happening with people who have the jet skis or the wake issues. I'm not sure what it takes to solve the problem. I don't know how much authority the Lake Quinsigamond Commission has over legislating behavior. But I see this as really, there's a need to educate these people to be good citizens when they're using the lake and to treat the rest of the people who live on the lake with respect. I don't know how you do that, but that's really kind of where this is going, and it's getting to the point where it's becoming a crisis.
I'll reserve my comments to my turn, because I have some comments to add to which have been said. Is that it?
Yes.
So, Mr.
Okay.
Nelson?
I have 2 comments. The first one, sort of a minor one, is that the 2 boat clubs on the lake, the Worcester Boat Club and the Donahue Boathouse, the Quinsigamond Boat Club, having a 3-hour friendly masters race with a bunch of the local other masters boat clubs in central Massachusetts for 3 hours this coming Sunday morning. So some of you on the lake might have noticed that they were afraid they couldn't get the whole, this is just a 1,000-meter boat course just north of the Burns Bridge. They couldn't get it all in time on this coming Saturday. So they put half of the course in last Saturday, and they're going to put the other half in this coming Saturday, and they promised to have it all out by Sunday afternoon. And that is the only it's not a regatta, but the only sort of rowing racing activity on the lake this summer until the colleges come back in the late fall. So I just wanted to mention what was going on there. The other thing which really concerns me, I was going to talk about it, thinking about it the last couple of days, and then I've found so far we've had public participation as other members talking about it. And this has strongly affected me as well out on the lake. We have, Speed limits, 40 miles an hour maximum, hopefully no one goes, 6 miles an hour in a no-wake zone. Being responsible for your wake and any damage it could cause either to docks or the shoreline or to other boats. Last Wednesday morning, I was out rowing on the lake very early, and I had just crossed over, 100 feet north of the Burns Bridge from the Worcester side to the Shrewsbury side, when this big, I think it was an inboard boat, it was moving so fast. When I crossed over and I carefully looked to make sure no one was coming, there was nothing there. And I barely got out of the center of the lake when this boat came. It must have been 30 or 40 miles an hour, 2 guys sitting in it, roaring up the lake, straight full speed through underneath the Burns Bridge, passed me and kept on going. I didn't have time to really turn around and get a number off of it because I was trying to keep from tipping over. Luckily, I haven't tipped over yet this summer. I almost did that time. And there are people watching on TV, and there's the audience members, and I just want to stress again, like a couple of our audience members have, people on the lake should be responsible for others. Particularly if you've got a big power boat, just in front of me, going onto the bridge, was a young lady on a paddleboard. I was so busy trying to keep from tipping over, I don't know whatever happened to her. But those 2-foot-high wake from that boat that just kept going down the lake as fast as it possibly could, wasn't concerned about anyone else. And particularly, it's a no-wake zone between the bridge, plus the previous Monday night at 7 p.m., the commission had voted for a no-wake zone over the whole lake. There are certain people that aren't paying attention to this that I'm just please asking everybody who's willing to pay attention to what's going on, pay attention. And yet again this morning, I was just pulling away from the Donahue Boathouse very early, about to go in front of the launching dock there, when there was a big parked pontoon boat, not moving. And all of a sudden, he started up his engine full roar, roared right out in the lake in a big turn down the center of the lake. And of course, it was a pontoon boat, so it wasn't going anywhere as fast as that inboard. But still, being a pontoon boat, it made a huge wake. And we had a public member talking about the water was 1 inch below the bottom of his dock. These sort of wakes are going to go right over people's docks, not to mention the damage they do in the shoreline. And all I was thinking is, luckily I'm going north and he's heading south. And the next thing I knew, before I even got to the 290 bridge, he came roaring back up the middle of the lake in his pontoon boat, making a great big wake. Both of these boats were going as fast as their operators could make them. They didn't care about any rules. And this is just something that, as a member of the commission, I see it myself, I understand it, it's a problem, it needs to be solved, and I'm just hoping more people are listening and will hopefully take a little bit of courtesy in mind. And I'm sorry to go on a little too long for that, but it's bothering and annoying and possibly could injure someone on the lake. Thank you.
You done? Sergeant Gimel?
We've had a tough last couple of weeks because our boat couldn't get out of the boathouse because of the rise of the lake and stuff like that, and we couldn't get the boat out. But when we did get out, we got out twice during the no-wake zone, and my 2 officers that were assigned made 26 stops, and they actually removed 9 vessels from the water. Without giving fines, they removed 9 vessels for the water rather than fine them, and 6 out of the 9 were jet skis that they removed when they were out there. But because of the rise of the water, we weren't able to get our boat out for most of the time because the boathouse is ancient and our boat's a lot bigger than what it is, and we didn't want to damage the boat. We did put the boat on Flint Pond for 1 day. Unfortunately, it rained for like 3 out of the 4 hours that they were out there. But we tried to address the Flint Pond issue as best we could with our smaller boat. But like I said, it rained 3 out of the 4 days, so there's nothing's going to be going on. And then I had to move my resources to Indian Lake 1 day with the smaller boat because we couldn't use our bigger boat for Lake Quinsig. Like I said, we did do a joint operation with State Police in Shrewsbury on the water, State Police, Mass Environmental, and Worcester on land, trying to address the loud music last Saturday. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out like we thought it would pan out. But we did look into the issues from all the complaints that we did. You know, we had 15 officers on land trying to address that, and 2 boats on the water trying to address the boats being docked. But it's a crapshoot. You know, some days it pans out, some days it doesn't. We wish it was more resourceful with all that manpower there, but unfortunately it wasn't. That's it.
Anything else? Selectman Ritos?
Our jet ski will be delivered this week finally, so we will be able to access Flint Pond. It certainly isn't going to cure everything, but it'll at least give us access. Regarding Oak Island, we have tried to increase foot patrols there, and we've kicked out and dealt with numerous people there. Like you said, it is extremely busy. We are trying to deal with that from land side. The idea about the drone, I'm actually in the process of purchasing a drone through the department. So maybe I hadn't thought of that use for it, but certainly not a bad idea.
Don't let them shoot it.
I will be scheduling more ramp enforcement because that seems to help a lot, trying to keep things off the lake to begin with. But one thing I would mention is jet skis, obviously, it's a exponentially worse problem all the time. Most of the jet skis that we deal with, and I'm curious to see what you have to say, sir, but the problem jet skis seem to be ones that are being put in at the ramps. They aren't residents of the lake. I don't know if there's any way that you could go about creating any kind of rule or legislation or anything that would prevent them from accessing the lake if they weren't residents using jet skis. I have no idea, but I can tell you that 90% of the jet skis that we deal with, probably 99% of them that are problems, are not residents of the lake. They're coming in on one of the ramps. So just an observation. I have no idea what can be done about that, but is that
Just to go with Lieutenant, the jet skis that were removed from the lake were all non-residents for the no-wake zone violations. And just so you know, they were removed. It wasn't like a one violation for no-wake zone. It was multiple violations where we caught them that we finally said, you have to leave the water. And every vessel was a non-resident of the lake.
We made numerous arrests with jet skis and things like that, but they just keep coming. So.
Any other comments?
No, sir.
So let me take,
Can I make one
go
quick
ahead.
comment on that? As a commission, we've been through talking about the problems of jet skis for many years, and we run into the laws of Massachusetts, such as they're allowed on any great pond of over 10 acres. But one area that maybe the commission should be trying to study in answer to your question is we could do something more limited, such as requiring transit jet ski operators before they operate their jet ski on the lake to take a one-day special course that concerns all of the hazards and rules and other unique problems to Lake Quinsigamond before they get a sticker allowing them to operate on the lake. Then law enforcement would have a very easy ability to just turn away every jet ski that doesn't have that sticker on it. And I'd be willing to bet there's a significant number of these transient people who would rather go to another lake than attend a one-day course on safety.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
okay. So if I could, I'm going to take my turn as the commission member and as vice chair and chairing the meeting tonight. Let's just, if I could, talk about jet skis. Lived on the lake for decades, okay? I'm on the shore of the lake every single day. I witnessed the jet skis daily. Historically, let me say that I was a member of the commission many years ago, when there was a discussion of maybe a need to ban jet skis because at that time the motors were so loud. It's interesting that the industry did some adaptation where the volume of jet skis at that time, within a year or two, significantly decreased. I think the industry recognized that a huge problem. They were upsetting a lot of people. And things changed, okay, in terms of the manufacturing of the device. They were markedly quieter. If anybody knows anything about the history of things, they'll know what I'm talking about. There was a meeting we had in the Sachs Room at the Worcester Public Library in downtown Worcester where there was all these beefed up guys pointing fingers at us who obviously came to that meeting because they knew that, they were on the line in terms of possibly being banned. And it was a tough meeting, okay? It was many, many years ago, decades ago at this point. So yes, I've been around that long, okay? So I can share that with you. Let's move along in the discussion. A lot of what we're talking about is cat and mouse stuff, okay? These guys, they use their phones, so they've heard that there's a call out in terms of too loud of a radio or maybe jet skis, so they tone it down until such time as they think the coast is clear, all right? So that's a reality of life. It's like, respectfully to the officers here, you'll see a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. There's no cops around. You want to get home, you still drive 45 miles an hour down the road to get to your house or wherever you're going, okay? Sadly said, that seems to be a part of human nature. And in that regard, frankly, from what I observe, and even when we had the no-wake zone from Friday, Saturday, Sunday into Monday, the biggest violators of it, from my observation of things, were jet skiers. They were the biggest violators in terms of going beyond wake speed, okay? But a jet ski's really not manufactured and made to go at 3 to 5 miles an hour, okay? It's made to zip around. Everybody knows that. So there's nothing more to say about that. That's the way that's what they're meant to do. Frankly, I also know that we play cat and mouse with some rental operators who bring in 3 or 5 jet skis and they rent them out to whoever, all right? And they've never come in front of us to ask for a permit to do such, which they're supposed to relative to the rules. By the way, the rules say that you're not supposed to go beyond 40 miles an hour on the lake. That's one of our rules, okay? So, and the other thing is you can't have police officers out there and if you all the time, and if you have a detail that's at the north end of the lake and people observe that and they're going south, well, then nobody's going to stop me from playing around, fooling around as I'm now in the south end of the lake. But in the future, like they do in big cities, maybe drones have to happen. Maybe drones with also audio and video. If the Community Preservation Act has some monies to spend, maybe they can spend them on drones. Maybe they can pay for some extra details for police to be able to monitor that so that they can be sent to the locations where, I don't care what you say, we have you on video. You were doing this, whatever that is, okay? So there's some thoughts there, that maybe something like that has to happen in the future, which involves, be it jet skis or whatever. Now, let me talk about a couple good note things and then move along. Waterfowl. People know, as I'm a commissioner, I'll frequently talk about waterfowl. And I got to tell you, there are more waterfowl in the lake than ever. Never mind the eagles. I'm seeing cormorants. I'm seeing more herons than ever. Ospreys like I've never seen. I watch them dive for fish. It's a wonderful thing to see them do their thing. But I got to let you know, in the Half Moon Cove, when I've complained about it here as a commissioner at meetings before relative to all the weeds in there, one night sitting on my dock watching Canada geese, and they do this every night towards sunset, thus then swim out of the Half Moon Cove into the main part of the lake. I counted 80 Canada geese one night, 80 of them, just in a few minutes. They'd done their thing in terms of eating and doing whatever else, and I'll leave that for your imagination. And so, that's a big concern. There seems to be almost too many Canada geese. Now, you can't go hunt them, but the reality of the matter is Canada geese are not just fouling Lake Quinsigamond. Canada geese are fouling waters all around the state and estuaries and rivers that run into places down Cape Cod where beaches have been closed, shell fishing has been terminated. So it's a big issue and it's a concern. I'm not going to say I'm going to solve it now tonight by me articulating it, but I'm just articulating it. That's an issue. Moving along. Flint Pond, let me address that for a moment. That's become an unofficial public park, okay? That's something else that's awful hard to police and maintain all the time. It's an issue. To hear that there's going to be a jet ski around that might be able to do a little enforcement there, that's a good thing, because in the end, the police officers here can educate me if I'm wrong, but typically police like to educate first. Sir, turn down the music, sir. Slow it down. I would like to think they say, I see who you are, I see the numbers on your boat. If I have to stop you again, next time it's going to be a ticket. Okay? Correct me if I'm wrong, but unless it's really a grievous offense, you try to cut people a little slack to start with. That is, notify them about what they're doing wrong. Next time, no excuses, you're ticketed. So, but the point is, people will take it to the hilt at times. Let's just have an honest discussion here. They will. It's not right. It's not nice. It's not courteous to the abutters. So let me move on to something else then. High water, all right? Again, I had mentioned earlier that we had a special meeting of the commissioners to allow for the chair to, or the acting chair, to have a no-wake zone throughout the entire lake if the lake was so high as to be damaging. Now, damaging, I just want to kind of go over it with people. It's not just for the nice folks that have boats with docks. Damaging also includes the shoreline. I have pictures sent to me by abutters in the last few days of giant logs. I mean, we're talking 20-foot-long logs and trees that, you know, if they're growing next to the water goes high, and it undercuts the roots, when they fall down into the lake, they become navigation hazards. And also, it's a lot of flotsam and junk from all those recent rains that has washed into the lake. All right, I have cleaned off stuff off my property. I didn't want to articulate some of the things I've found, but it hasn't been pretty. It isn't nice, but it's a reality. We have a lake that's next to the second largest city in New England, and inevitably you're going to get, when you have all these streams and tributaries from heavy, heavy rain, inches of rain, it's going to flush a lot of stuff, we'll call it stuff, into the lake, okay? So the point is, it's going to rain heavy tomorrow. That's the predicted weather. And, you know, we haven't even entered August yet. We've all been around in this room long enough to know that that's kind of like the tropical storm season when you'll get really heavy rains. So we may very well have to issue a no-wake zone in the lake, if not tomorrow, within the next week or two, whatever, as we seem fit, that with our collective sense of what's the right thing to do, put it in effect. Where do we come from in terms of making such a determination? The water level, the rate that goes over the Hovey Dam, measurements by different people on the lake in terms of how deep is the water, relative to their docks in terms of, you know, how it's getting to a certain level. But understand, like you're responsible for your boat, your dock is not a right, it's a privilege. You know, unfortunately, if your dock's affected by it in terms of panels are washed out or lines are broken or whatever, you know, I feel bad, but the point is, if we recognize that this is happening or about to happen, we try to use good judgment in terms of calling a no-wake zone throughout the entire lake. So again, we rescinded it on Monday, but we may have to enact it again, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. Let it be known that over the decades I've lived on the lake and watched the water go up and down relative to significant weather events, meaning a lot of rainwater coming into the lake. The lake isn't going down as fast, from my observations of things, as it has years heretofore, following a significant weather event of a lot of water. Now, it could be due to a couple things. Number one, the dam we had previously was very porous. Up until a couple of years ago, it was like a sieve. So although there was a top to the dam, the water was just going through it because the dam wasn't functioning. There was holes in it. That dam got repaired a couple of years ago. So now the water in average is a little higher last couple of years. Number two, never mind the lake's watershed. That is the area around the lake. I know as a fact that the lake is also spring-fed. And we all know that western Massachusetts and north central Massachusetts gotten an awful lot of rainwater recently. And it's very possible that there are some strong spring feeds coming into the lake that's keeping the lake up and not allowing for it to drop more so faster than, from my observation of things. And again, I come from watching my docks and living on the lake for decades, as has typically come down following a significant water event. So I want to say that, okay? Moving along. I think I've talked about a lot of the points that I wanted to make. So in that regard, in terms of commissioners' reports, I'm going to consider ourselves done with that for the time being. I'd like to move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is the lake update plan. I have no update in terms of the drawdown at this time. I have no update in terms of the weed mapping. Now, on item C here on the number 7, update on the pilot study for natural heritage. Let me say this, that in talking with Chairman Peter Collins, we have been discussing trying to get a meeting of the minds in terms of state representatives and people from Mass Fish and Wildlife and Natural Heritage, see if we can get together and have some kind of agreement so that we can effectively treat weeds. I've heard a lot of complaints in terms of the weeds in the Half Moon Cove, which has been saturated this year. But besides that, I can tell you, as I take my boat around the lake, I can see shredded weeds all over the lake, okay? So it's not a good thing. We have to do something. We have to do something significant. And frankly, this is my opinion as a commission member, we need to have some cooperation from like people like Natural Heritage to recognize, you know, I guess to boil it down to a nutshell, if human beings are going to use Lake Quinsigamond to swim, to fish, to kayak, to paddleboard, to ski, to cruise, to sail, to row, okay? I've run up by 8 things here off the top of my head, all right? Some things like a potential rare deep water pondweed, should that really thwart this major park resource we have in terms of our use? I really don't think so. And I think a lot of people might agree with me. We have to have some compromise here. So that's my comment in terms of Natural Heritage. I have no other comment other than I hope we can get together with them. And I would even have them come here. And if that would be too anxiety producing for these folks, if we have a subcommittee meeting off of this where we can report back, I hope I can come back to you with some good news about that. Moving on. That kind of ties in item D under number 7, an update on invasive species treatments on Lake Quinsigamond and Newton Pond, because I have no other knowledge or comment about Newton Pond at the moment. And number E under number 7, update on the act on the proposal for drawdown permits for Newton Pond. I don't know anything about that tonight. Peter might know more. He'll be here at the next meeting. So I'm now going to move on to item number 8, update from Jacqueline Bergmeister, Senior Environmental Analyst, Lake and Pond, City of Worcester. Jacqueline, you representative of such? So could you give your name and address and tell us what's up?
Hello. Is it good?
Replacement?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Pagan, a Senior Environmental Analyst with the City of Worcester Department of Sustainability and Resilience.
Have you taken Jackie's place?
I have not. So
Okay.
I work alongside Jackie.
Okay.
I've been with the Lakes and Ponds program for about 2 years, but I've been
Okay.
working alongside her for the last 5 years or so.
Okay.
In a number of capacities. Jacqueline recently took a position in the DPW in the engineering department. So we're sad to see her go, but on to bigger and better things. She wasn't able to make it tonight, but she wanted to let everybody know that she's really enjoyed working with everybody and being a part of these meetings for so long in this community. But I'll be the interim Lakes and Ponds coordinator until we find a new coordinator, and be kind of moving forward with what we've always done. We've been out. So I'm actually the person that has been doing the active in-lake monitoring for the last couple of years. So now I'm just kind of moving into the role for the moment of taking on more of these questions and things like that. We've continued to be out on the lake over the last 2 days. Tributaries were looking a little bit less full of water in the last few days than in the past weeks. The water levels have seemed to have receded in the tributaries at least. We were out on the lake today. Surface temperatures were quite high, between 26 and 27 degrees Celsius, which is around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, so quite warm. This is about as warm as we have seen it in the past, and usually the peak temperatures are in mid to late August. So it's likely that we'll see some of the highest water temperatures that we have in the past years. The other major observation that we had from the last day on the lake was that Secchi clarity, so that's the amount of clarity, water clarity that we see, has dropped from about 9.5 to 10 feet on our last sampling on July 12th to about 4.75 to 5 feet today.
It's gotten quite cloudy from all the runoff. It's the viscosity, the clarity is really reduced. I had some concerns as to whether it was indicative of, unfortunately, some something like cyanobacteria working, but I think the lake has had such a strong flush that it's really turbid. You're right. It's about half the clarity of typical just a couple weeks ago.
Right, and as rainwater comes in through the tributaries, it brings sediment, which bring nutrients, and this is kind of what we expect to see. This is also part of a dynamic that we've seen in past years where water clarity goes up following the spring turnover, goes back down in mid to late July, and then back up until we see the fall turnover. So this is part of a cycle that we've seen in past years, but this is quite low for Lake Quinsigamond. So it's something that we'll be keeping an eye on and, making sure we understand.
Just to add to that, a WPI study done in the 1960s at that time determined that the volume of the lake turns over about once every 180 days, so about twice a year the actual volume of the lake moves along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, something that's also knowledge that people should kind of have in mind. What you see today, and 6 months from now, will have moved along. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to lake management. So recently we went out to bid for some invasive plant management work in Zone A. 2 companies bid for the work, and the bid was accepted for a company called All Habitat Services. They'll be doing treatment for milfoil using a product called Percellacor, and treatment for fanwort using a product called Clipper. So they're getting their final permitting together, which should take a week or two, and we should be able to schedule treatment.
Where will that take place?
This is in
Part of the lake.
in management area A, so that's above the Narrows. I can't speak. I'm still learning a lot of these management
You
activities.
say above Kings Point, where?
Above Kings Point.
Okay,
Yes.
Excuse me, when you say above, do you mean north?
North.
north.
Okay.
Apologies. Upstream. So as we get this work scheduled, I'll be in touch with the commission and all necessary folks. Moving on. So just kind of reminders. The Lakes and Ponds program has developed a couple tools for folks to be get information more easily about the lake. We've developed a text alert system for lake closures. I'm sure Jacqueline has mentioned this in past meetings, but we are in touch with both the City of Worcester Inspectional Services, who do our beach testing, as well as DCR, who are testing at the beaches on Quinsig. So we're updating that as soon as we get results for fecal coliform testing.
Has there been any closures due to fecal coliform in Lake Quinsigamond so far this season?
There have, yes. So there have been a number of closures, both at Regatta Point and Lake Park, although, to my understanding, they're all currently open.
Are those beaches open today as of this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm seeing somebody shake their heads.
Regatta Point State Park, north of the Route 9 Bridge has been closed and is expected to stay closed for the rest of the season.
Oh, apologies.
And it's not E. coli, they do the other one,
In Pterococcus.
Pterococcus.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Do they do testing at Oak Island for that?
That's the town of Shrewsbury. Mr. Pagan's representative of the city of Worcester,
Yes.
so they may not test there. Now, as to whether the town of Shrewsbury tests at Oak Island off of Route 20 or not, I do not know.
Yes.
I don't know. Okay.
Someone tests
They do?
there because it's been closed at least this summer once.
Okay. Okay, so it is tested. Okay. All right.
So I just have a couple other things moving on. So as you were talking about geese on the lake, We are working to implement some fencing for both the city beaches in Worcester and the state beaches on Quinsig. Over the last few years, we've been developing fencing to keep geese off the beach. They tend to congregate, especially at night, and as you said, do their business, which bring both bacteria and nutrients in the water, leading to a lot of the issues that we have restricting access. So we have put together a fencing system that should hopefully keep geese off the beach. That is in place when lifeguards aren't on duty. We have given the system to the folks at Regatta Point, although I believe it was damaged recently. So we're looking for a replacement for that system. But we are looking to continue to implement goose fencing on beaches, both in the city and in Lake Quinsigamond, hopefully to reduce bacterial closures on the beaches. And that's about all I have for folks, unless we have
Mr. Chair, question, please.
Mr. Nelson?
In previous years, I've noticed you've had 2 real-time monitoring stations, one north of the Burns Bridge and one south of the Burns Bridge.
Yes.
This whole month of July, I haven't seen the one north of the Burns Bridge. Where is it?
Absolutely. So we are still planning on implementing the real-time monitoring buoys. Due to all of the shakeups happening in the program currently, we haven't been able to make it out to put them in, but that is still on the docket. So we're planning on putting one buoy just south of the Donahue Rowing Center, where it has been in past years, and the other one just south of Ramshorn Island to continue to track effects in that area. So they will be put out on the lake. It just has not happened to this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pagan.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda, an update from the representative of the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association.
Hello, I'm Barbara Kickham with the Lake Quinsigamond Watershed Association. I just wanted to make a few comments that the commissioners were making, just add to some of the things you were saying. We have talked about licensing in general, boating, all boats and jet skis, but it's an interesting idea to say just for the lake, but it's something I think that the commission I would encourage a commission to look to maybe lobby our state reps to do something statewide. It would bring in money to environmental police, environmental programs. New Hampshire does it. It's a good idea. I wanted to ask if we're still checking at the ramps for registrations and safety equipment of jet skis, because that worked really well last year. You guys got a lot of people
Yes.
still doing that? Okay.
We would if we had a ramp, but we don't. We don't.
I
But we do
mention that.
the old ramp at Worcester. That doesn't exist.
And I had a question about when you put up the notification for the no wake, did you put up a sign at the ramps, or was it, you did, okay, because it's Facebook, and it's, if you get the email listserv, and I just know there's people that aren't on either of those. I mean, I personally know people that didn't know. Someone who lives in my house. So, not everybody, they're coming off the lake in particular, they don't even know. But if it's posted at the ramp, then it should be. And I'm wondering if maybe next year or later this year that we close the ramp if it's no wake, just to limit activity. It's something the commission should think about. And I also wanted to comment, Mike, your comment about the slower water levels. When the soil is really saturated like it is right now, it does take a lot longer for the water level to go down. So that's one thing that's going on right now. We are doing our bacteria monitoring throughout the lake. We've got our 6 locations and 2 outfalls, and we don't do a quick turnaround, so it's not for real time. It's not so that we can tell people we have bacteria levels of X, Y, or Z, because we just pay standard turnaround, which is 2 weeks, sometimes it's longer, and then we have to QA the data and whatever, get it into a readable format. So we're always a few weeks behind. But we have seen really high bacteria levels pretty much everywhere, all the sampling locations, up through late July, and we just got our first sample, the next sample in July was July 11th. But I do want to reassure people that the samples that we collect mid-lake always come back below any water quality standard violations. So it dissipates very quickly once it goes out of the tributaries and gets in the sun, starts breaking it down. E. coli usually goes away pretty quickly. So they're pretty low where anybody's water skiing or whatever. And also to add to Bill's comment about, and I think also people in the audience calling the police all the time, they should also be calling the state reps and call DCR headquarters. They don't like that. Call DCR headquarters, not DCR at the parks, but call headquarters, because they're not used to that and they won't. That's who we should be calling, not just the police. We should keep calling police, but call your state reps and they will also be following up, and they don't like that either. So, and
Can I ask a question about that? When you say they don't like that,
they're not used to getting complaints. They're not the police, it's a state agency. And so if you're calling and saying one of their parks is causing dozens of homes problems, and we've been hearing about this for how many years at these meetings, of all these people complaining, they probably aren't really aware. I don't know if they're aware of it. I don't know. But I think that they should be called too. So call everybody. Okay, so my last thing is, we did our second weed pull, water chestnut weed pull, July 8th, and we had about 20 volunteers, and sounds like a lot, but I would say 8 of them at least were off the lake, were not lake residents, but you also have to have people on land, you have to have people in boats, so actual people pulling the weeds, there was probably 12 or something. But it went very well. We got like 20 bags, but we barely made a dent. We focused on the north end, but we really barely made a dent in the water chestnuts. So it would have been nice to have another one this summer, but it hasn't happened. We couldn't get the rental equipment, the kayaks and stuff like that, for another time this summer. So we'll be back next summer. It was a lot of work, but I think we need more of a committee to try to figure out how we're going to do this. Bill came back again and participated and went to the southern end this time, and we did a lot. We did what we could, but it'd be nice to, everyone needs to just be aware, pick them where you see them, and just keep trying to get rid of them. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, a couple of comments. I thank you for letting me participate, and I agree with you, because really, in surveying the lake, it's incredible how many invasive weeds there are in the northern end of the lake flowing in compared to the southern end. So I have to second you on that. But the other comment is the one I really want to make. I understand that your weed testing, you can't afford the rapid response, so it takes 2 weeks. So I just want to comment on, excuse me, should have said bacteria testing. I'm trying to talk too quick. I want to make a couple of comments on the other bacteria testing. Shrewsbury, for example, does a very good job. When they test, they tell you exactly it's at Gauch Park, or it's at this inlet or that inlet. You know exactly when. They have it on the Shrewsbury website. They put it on the Lake Quinsigamond website. And the only reason I'm mentioning how good a job they do is I want to contrast it to the DCR. When the DCR makes one test at Regatta Point or State Park and it comes up positive, they put it on the state list of every single pond and body of water in Massachusetts, and you have to go through pages and pages to finally find what you're looking for, and then they say Lake Quinsigamond, period, closed. So you don't even know that it was one test for maybe one goose on one corner of Regatta Point. The DCR just says Lake Quinsigamond closed on the official state location. So DCR could really improve their reporting of their test results, and all they have to do is look at Shrewsbury to see how great a job they do. That's my only comment.
Anybody else?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Does the
Amanda?
Quinsigamond Commission have a reporting process? I mean, could we put something out on the internet that brings together the Worcester side, the Lake Quinsigamond Association, and DCR?
I don't know of anything specific in terms of, other than what might be on a web page.
In terms of the no-wake order, they put out a lot of notifications on like Parks and Rec Facebook page and shared from there. They have to notify me, which I included in the notes, if anyone wants to share that, or we can share the link somehow. In terms of bacteria monitoring, it would probably be the same notifications, but that's a different department than recreation. I don't know who we would touch base with on that. Yeah, Shrewsbury's pretty good about the notifications, and then, at least in the watershed page, I always say Worcester residents of Lake Quinsigamond, go ahead and add yourself to Lake Quinsigamond Commission. But in terms of the ramp closure, we can close the ramp. We are allowed to do that as part of the no wake order, but the chair or designee has to make that call at the same time. So when the chair makes that decision, no wake order, also closing the ramp. So in the future, that would just be how we have to make that call. So,
My question was specifically directed toward water quality testing.
oh, water quality testing, yeah. We can touch base with the department that is doing bacteria testing, and we can try and figure it out from there.
May I add, the City of Worcester's text alert system compiles all of the Worcester and Lake Quinsigamond alerts. So we put up all of the beach closures that happen on Lake Quinsigamond from DCR.
Chair, can I ask a question? Where is that found?
So you can find it on the City of Worcester website, worcesterma.gov/bluespace, and you can sign up for it there. And we try to post those as soon as we get them at all hours of the day. So we try to be very responsive with those closures.
So, as the chair, I'd like to make one more comment about the presentation. Thank you very much, Barbara. Jet skis, licensing them, it may come down to that in the future, and this commission may need to take a look at. Maybe, as Commissioner Nelson has suggested, maybe people have to sign an affidavit that have a condition of terms to get a sticker. And if they don't have it on their jet ski, they're ordered off the lake, because we've got to get a handle on this at some point. That's a concern I have. Another thing, the lake needs a lot of help. It needs, we elect officials, they get a good salary. Nobody on this commission gets a salary, okay? We're all volunteers, understand that. But when you elect somebody, they get a pretty good salary, okay? We need some help, and we need to petition the forces that be to try to, allocate some resources towards protecting Lake Quinsigamond, be it harvesting, treatment, or whatever. And a pittance of a few $100s, or even $10,000 or $20,000, ain't going to do it. So we need some help in that regard. So with that said, let me just say, we're going to move on to the next item of business, review correspondence. I have no correspondence to go over at this time. And then the next item of business, number 11, is to set a date for the next meeting. Do we have a date for the next meeting?
We are going to be in this room again Wednesday, August 30th at 7 p.m.
Okay. So then, the next item of business is a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to
I
adjourn?
make a motion to
Do we
adjourn.
have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So adjourned.